We spoke about Charlie Kirk, of course, and the disgusting way they treated him after his death. And there's just no limits to it, really. And so tell me a little bit about what's happened with Iryna Zarutska and a group of editors and what they were trying to do.
So Iryna Zarutska was this woman, and most people probably know by now, who was murdered on a train. She was a Ukrainian refugee, and she was in Charlotte, North Carolina. She was murdered for no reason. It was all caught on camera. This happened in late August. It started to kind of pop up on social media on X in early September, the first week of September, and people started to really pay attention to this horrible thing that had happened. I just kind of had this sense that if the mainstream media wasn't covering it, which it wasn't, then Wikipedia is going to have an echo of that same effect. So I go to the article and I see at the very top this red banner saying this article is nominated for deletion. So there was an article already about her, but then editors were trying to get it removed. And the big narrative around this whole thing was that there was no coverage in the media about her murder. Why not? This was important. This is significant. It wasn't an everyday occurrence. It wasn't everyday crime. This is a Ukrainian refugee come to America to find a better life and is murdered in this crazy, senseless act. So when it comes to the Wikipedia editors, you have to think, hold on, why are they trying to pull this down? What is the interest there? And again, they can make the argument that, well, there's no notable sources, there's no reliable sources for this article, which that was not true either. But for them, it was an ideological push. It was something they were pursuing an agenda. These small cluster of editors that are working on a lot of these other same spaces, they didn't want the world to see this, and they didn't want the world to know about it. And they decided, they took it upon themselves, which is what they do, that the world will not see it.
That is mad. I mean, if I think of a criticism I sometimes get is that, I try too hard to see maybe the good in the other side, and some say, oh, you're being naive. And I appreciate that. And I understand that. But, and I guess in that moment, I did want to go, okay, but they're not covering it, all the news, the sort of center-left news publications. Well, how many murders are there in America every day? And some of them involve different races and things like that, and what might happen on a bus at night, and maybe that's the reason it's not seen as relevant, or they just haven't thought about it. I'm trying because I like that Hanlon's razor thing, or always assume people mean well, but it's not malice.
Yeah.
And there you have in front of you, a red banner going, we are doing what is, I suppose there are arguments to be made. Oh, this is Wikipedia protocol. But I think that is them saying, we are doing malice here. We are maliciously going to, we haven't forgotten, we didn't not see it. We didn't think, oh, this is the same as every other. There's been millions of deaths in the world today. They've gone, we're taking that down.
Yes.
That's a disgrace. Did that make you angry seeing that?
To be honest, knowing what I know about Wikipedia and having reported on it for a year, I was not surprised. I was not surprised. I was surprised by the response because I took a screenshot on my phone, circled the banner like clumsily with my finger, put my phone down, went to bed, woke up in the morning, there were 60,000 likes on the tweet. And I think the reason is because people are starting to wake up to this fact. They have seen Wikipedia as this neutral arbiter for so long. They've been told the story. And now they're kind of understanding the truth about it, which is that it is functionally equivalent to the mainstream media. If you don't trust the mainstream media, you won't trust Wikipedia. And they're starting to see how this actually plays out in real life. And back to the point about what sources had covered this murder or not, that's, again, one of these, they citing the rules, sure, and if you're just kind of paying attention to that noise, you're like, yeah, it makes sense. But then if you widen the aperture a little bit and you look at the thousands and thousands and thousands of completely irrelevant articles, like, for example, an article about a roller coaster in Denmark that has a theme of dog farts. That's an article. I don't know how they sourced it. I don't know if CNN covered that, but it's an article. There are tens of thousands of articles that are equally or more trivial than that one, including about current events. But this is the one they targeted for deletion.
And it's such a strange, I guess I'm thinking outside of Wikipedia now, just in terms of the culture wars we have going on here. It is such a strange thing because I want to look at that murder, horrible murder, and say, that's a lunatic who, as an individual, did a disgusting thing.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, the other side don't do that. So, this idea, a policeman is trying to hold someone back, a black guy dies. there are riots around the world.
Yeah.
There was an interesting point I saw Konstantin Kisin make. He was saying, look at what you don't see happening. He was saying that's after the Charlie Kirk assassination. And he said, you don't see right now riots around the world. You don't see people smashing windows and breaking things and going nuts like that.
That's right.
It sort of speaks to, and I don't, it's hard for me because I want to say, oh, there's baddies on both sides kind of thing. But it does speak to something at the heart of what is going on, at least on the left, this aggression at the moment.
There are baddies on both sides. I mean, we've seen that. You can see that. You can open any social media platform today and you'll see that. But I think there's a relationship that the left has to violence that you don't quite have on the right today. You have things that are equally abhorrent on the right, sometimes more. But the left, in my read of it, because it comes from this extreme materialism where the virtue is power, and to achieve the most virtue is to achieve the most power. And to do that, the most direct route is often violence. And they fall back on the violence. We saw it in the Soviet Union, you saw it in Cuba, you saw it in every society and country that takes leftist ideology to its most illogical conclusion. And that conclusion is always violence. So I think this is something we need to be aware of, and also to distinguish between leftism and liberalism, because that's like getting lost in all this. And I think too many people who come from the liberal camp have just defaulted to the left because they're so outraged by the right. They don't think about the ideas. They just say, okay, everything's moving leftward, I'm going with it. And they're throwing their law into something that is inherently anti-liberal. Because at the end of the day, liberalism comes from the idea of freedom, and freedom is a spiritual value. It's not tangible. You can't touch it and buy it and sell it the way that the leftism demands everything be quantified.
That's interesting. When you say quantified, what do you mean there?
I mean that the way that the left measures the world is in material possession, material aspects. The advent of Marxism, where he's saying historical materialism, there's not a spiritual ideal. So in religious-based civilizations, culture, you have a notion that you're progressing toward something. There is this teleological view of the world. With leftism, it's not about that. It's a cycle of power and who can grab power and who has to relinquish power. So for them, getting power, getting control, and getting control of the means of production, of things, of stuff. So it always comes back to that. It always comes back to what you can grab and hold and touch. And what you can grab and hold and touch can be attained through means of violence.
It's an irony because that kind of quantification or materialism is something the left would throw at the kind of a more capitalist society. That's what they always say about capitalism.
Yeah. And they love to say that every accusation is a confession. They love to say that. And that's true for them too.
Yeah. Self-projection. Can I ask you a favor? Please subscribe. 90% of you are not subscribed. So if you sub, it will help the channel and I'll keep making these clips.